everyone, I'm Sandeep Patni, co-founder and VP of Systems at CumuLogic. Today in this webinar, I'll walk you through a live demo and you will see how easy it is to set up and manage MongoDB-as-a-Service with CumuLogic. CumuLogic's NoSQL database service provides a quick and easy way to provision fully managed MongoDB database instances on any cloud, public or private. Users can launch dedicated MongoDB service and optimize it for their particular workload as needed. So let's go ahead and see how we can provision a standalone MongoDB instance first, and then we will walk through multiple complex configurations from there on. So from here, this is the user dashboard. I'm going to switch into NoSQL service. So there are these other service modules which are available. We're going to focus on MongoDB-as-a-Service under this NoSQL. So I'm going to click on details. I can see the details of that service, and then here I have something we call subscription. So these subscriptions are pre-packaged configurations you can create for your users, and then developers can just come here and quickly pick up one of these configurations and launch the service. So let's go pick this standalone MongoDB instance from here. So that is going into particular zone, the storage size, and this configuration details are here. So I'm going to click on launch, then provide it a name. So I'm going to call it DynamoDB 5, and then launch. Confirm that, and here. That's it. So few clicks, you saw we started provisioning the DynamoDB 5 here with that default configuration that was listed there. So here we can see this is in progress. So what is happening under the hood, CumuLogic controller now is going into particular connecting to that underlying IaaS infrastructure, provisioning those resources, the virtual machine, the storage, all that the required components for that service. Then it will go and configure MongoDB, configure backup, monitoring, health agents, all of that 9 yards. And then once the configuration is ready, the status will turn to green from in progress, and we will get details here in the bottom panel. So we will see access details made available to us. Then we will be able to connect to that database service from there. And once the service is up and running, like you can see, some of these are here, then CumuLogic will continue to monitor and manage that service. So we will look through some of those management functions as we go. So that was just provisioning a very bare minimum single standalone instance and bringing it up very easy. Now let's take a look how we can provision more complex configurations. So from on the screen here, I'm going to click on launch instance, and then we will walk through some of the other complex configurations here. So I'm going to give it a name. So on any of the screens here in CumuLogic, you will find help information available. You can click on that, and you would get the on-screen help, so that you don't have to go out from here into the manual to get the information. So try to make it very simple for you to being able to provision that. Now let's give it some name. I'm going to call this, let's say, DynamoDB 6. Give it some description. So we will be provisioning a shard cluster. So engine is already pre-selected here. Under the type is where we will choose what we want to provision. So let's come to that. I'll leave that as standalone for now. I'm going to walk you through some of the configuration, and then we will see all the configuration options that are available. In the target cloud is where we can choose where I want to deploy this particular service. So I have in my account, as you can see, there are a few targets which are predefined. So I can choose one of these clouds, whether I want to provision that on Amazon or one of the other public clouds or a dedicated resource pool. So I'm going to pick that here on cloud 2. Then I can choose which zone I want to deploy. So these are all flexible. So it is very flexible for you to choose through all these options. Or if you wanted to go through default, you could just select that and deploy it without having to go through all these configurations. Now, in the instance type, you can choose what size of instance you want to provision. So I have here various options. You can see small, medium, large, pre-configured, and I can pick one of them. Tag is where I'm going to tag whether my service is production, development, or testing. So I'm going to call it a production service. And access group is where I'm going to define what access control. So this is the firewall policy. So if I don't define one, a default one is going to get created, and you can always edit that and manage the access control separately from the access group menu. So now So this is for a standalone setup. Now you can see that I have selected a different target location, the size of the instance, and the type and access control and all that. Here in the bottom section, I can define what database I want to create, a username, password, and a default collection I want created as part of the provisioning. Now, like we said, in the type, I have few configuration options available here. So let's see, I'm going to switch from standalone configuration to a replica set, and then we will see, as you can see here in the standalone configuration, I have a single node being provisioned as it says it's a standalone deployment. I'm going to provision a replica set now, so I'm going to change that to replica set, and we can see the number of nodes have gone up to 3. So that is the default configuration that we need to start with minimum 3 in a replica set. But having 3 nodes in a replica set, making 1 primary and 2 secondary, so MongoDB requires you to have odd number of secondaries replicas available. So in the event of a primary failure, it would be able to elect a primary. So we will add, if you select only 3 nodes as a default configuration, we will be adding 1 arbiter node so that in the event of failure, we can recover safely. Or we can, or you can change that to number of nodes as 4, and then we won't have to provision an arbiter node in that case. So now we have 1 primary and 3 replicas being provisioned. So in the bottom section here, we could continue keeping the username, password, the demo collection, those things which we were configuring for a standalone node. Now let's see if I wanted to provision a shard. So I'm going to go and select here in the type. I'm going to change this to a shard, and then we'll see what configuration options become available to us. So I select that as a shard, and then you can see now I have additional field called deployment type became available. So I have production and development deployment. Now the basic difference here is, when you are provisioning a shard, there could be various configurations as Chip just showed you earlier. Now, if you wanted to go with a very simple configuration in the development, you can just go with 1 config router, one query router, 1 config server, and a single shard in the configuration. Or for production, you might want to go with a more highly available configuration. So we would be provisioning multiple config servers and query routers and additional shards on that. So when I provision one as a default development, then I can start with minimum 3 nodes. So that's my very small deployment. If I switch that to production, it will automatically switch to 9 nodes here, as you can see, because it will be using 3 query routers, 3 config servers, and we'll be adding 1 shard plus 1 arbiter node in that event. So you can see that there are various configuration options which are available. Now, these configurations options, what you choose will impact the performance and the availability and the data durability of your database. Now, replica sets provide you the high availability and the data durability, while sharding provides you scalability. So you can configure shards on the replica set like we are doing here. That will give you best of both, this reliability as well as scalability. But there is an overhead on sharding and replication. So you should choose what's best suited for your application, but you can see all the options are available to you here. So let's say that we have selected here. Now in the bottom section, now we'll see, since we have selected a shard, we have few additional options available. We can provide a shard key, or whether it's a hash or not. And here we could just say, instead, if we don't want to provide a shard key, we can just say automatically hash on the ID. So once we have selected this information, let's go and say, go to the next screen. Here on this screen, we can provide some additional information, which is we want to fine tune our configuration. So here I have in the performance section, I can provide a parameter group. So parameter group is basically a predefined configuration which you want to apply to your database. So if you don't have one pre-created, you could start with a default configuration, and then you could always apply a specific fine-tuning configuration after the database is up and running. So we can see, so let's start with this parameter group which I have pre-created, and we will go and see how we can edit that when we look at the parameter groups. So I'm going to select the large DB here as a parameter. In the storage and backup section, as the name says, I'm going to specify how much storage I want to start with. Let's say I want to start with 10 gigabytes on this database. And in the backup options, I will choose my backup preferences. So I have choice to select my retention time from the default 1 day. Let's say I wanted to change it to 5 days retention, and then backup start time to be that time. In the maintenance section, similarly, I can choose and specify my maintenance window. So this is the time when, if we are doing any performance tuning, you want to do a automatic database restart at a specific interval, that can be selected from here, and this is the time that will be used. Now, this additional field here in the monitoring, you can see this is for enabling the MMS monitoring here. So we provide integration with MMS. So when you checkbox this, the MMS agents are installed on the specific nodes here, and they will be reporting data back into MMS. You could go into your MMS console and add those nodes for that additional monitoring. Now, as part of the provisioning, I will show you that CumuLogic does provide the system and the performance metrics which are available. But if you wanted to have that additional instrumentation, you could always connect that to MMS, and we provide that integration here. So that's it. So we have gone through all the options that are available here, and now we're going to say finish and confirm we want to provision this. Now we will see here, it's on the next screen. So DynamoDB 6, that is getting created, and the 10 nodes are selected. The status is in progress. So in the bottom section here, we will be able to follow the progress. So in the events tab is where we will see as the nodes are getting provisioned, and it's getting ready for us to use. So let's go back to the other screen here. So we saw that DynamoDB 5, which we started provisioning earlier, that got provisioned, and the events tab is where we can see all the details. It went through provisioning. Now this events log is maintained throughout the life of that database. So any errors that are occurring, or any activity, any management things, which functions which are implemented, like performance tuning or restarting, that will be logged here, and you'll be able to keep track of that for the life of the database. So now we went through provisioning a standalone instance, and then we also went through provisioning replica sets or a sharded cluster, and as that is getting provisioned, let's take a look at some of the functions which are available. So first thing, backup. We talked about at the time of the configuration, we selected some backup configuration there, and some backup policies. So the default system defined backup that is running at specific interval. If you wanted to take an ad hoc backup on a given database, so for example on any of these databases here, so you can go and click on create snapshot, select the database from the list which is available. Let's say I want to take a snapshot of DynamoDB 3. I'm going to call this snapshot 3, and I say create. So it will take a point in time snapshot at this point right now on that database. So you can see there I have some snapshots, and this new snapshot 3 is getting created. In the events, we will be able to confirm that created successfully, and it's ready now. So once the snapshots are available, I can manage this snapshot. I could restore from this particular snapshot and create a copy of database. So for example, I'm going to go and say restore from this snapshot. Then I can provide an instance name where I want to deploy this. So let's say here I have a choice to deploy that into a different zone than where the source was. Also, I can deploy that to a larger size of the virtual machine. So when I wanted to indirectly basically migrate from a smaller instance to a larger instance, I could take a snapshot and restore that to a larger instance and get myself migrated into a new instance. And then when I click on restore, that's going to provision one new instance and create restore it. Once, if you don't want to keep, so if you wanted to clean up the manually taken snapshots, you could go and delete them. The automatic snapshots are automatically cleaned by the system at as the retention time passes on them. Now let's go back to the instances, and let's take a look at some of the additional, the other view which is available onto currently provisioned databases. So for example, I have a shard which is provisioned with the 10 nodes here previously. Events we already looked at. The monitoring data. So like I said, as part of the provisioning, the monitoring agents are installed. They are collecting data and feeding into the controller, and the monitoring information is made available as it goes. So you can, this information will be useful when you're looking at the usage on the database. You wanted to fine tune something, click on that lens to get a zoom into view into the particular metric. You could enable, disable particular nodes you want to see and see specific nodes, or you can change the duration to see, you wanted to see older data for 4 hours, and you could see what was happening, that it was flat here and then some activity started happening. You could zoom into a particular interval by selecting it into that time and then say look into or zoom further down into that and so on. So these are various things which are available on that monitoring data. So this includes the system as well as the MongoDB specific like page fault, up counter, and some of that parameters which are available. Access details provides you access information for on that. So now you will see here that I have a query router when I wanted to connect to it, or I have so this deployment I have 3 query routers, config servers, and I have one shard which is added here. So you can see, and then I can see details of the shard. So this is a shard is added as a replica set. Like since it's my production deployment, I have added that as a replica set. So I can get all that information from here. Now, in some of the other information, which is what databases are created or what collections are existing in that, and what users I have. So this bottom pane provides you a complete view into your database, and you could make use of this information. Now let's take a look at some of the other actions which are available. So let's say that on that shard here, clicking on the action tab, we would see the actions which are available. So I have add collection. Click on add collection, and then I can go and now create and give it some name. Here I could create a new collection, and then similarly now since it's a shard, I can provide a new shard key, or I could just leave it alone for now and then say add collection. So now that collection is getting added. Similar, like I mentioned here in the events tab, we will see the progress that collection added, and then once that is ready for us to access, we would be able to see collections here added into that DB2 now. Let's take a look. I want to add a shard. So right now you can see that I have this, there was only a single shard available added. So I want to go and add additional shard capacity to it. So I want to go and say add a new shard. So that will go and start adding a new shard. So let me just go and create user first, and then we'll go and add shard once it goes into progress. So here I can add a user, and I could add that user onto an existing database, or I could create a new database if I wanted to and provide a user. So I'm going to add user. That user got added to it. So you can see there's various admin functions which you could provide, and then now the users will get added, and you would see the user available here. Now let's go and add a shard to this database and expand it from 10 nodes to the additional capacity we need. So when I click on that, now you could see that I'm adding exactly same size of the shard, and you would see that I have it will start provisioning that. Now it's so now the number of nodes have turned to 14. So once the virtual machines are created and configured, a shard is added and ready for use, this will turn back to green again, and we'll be able to access it. So this is all on shard, where you can grow from, as you can see, you can grow a shard from 10 nodes to 14 nodes just with few clicks here. Similarly, now on the, let's say, standalone instance, we started off provisioning a standalone instance. I want to grow from that standalone to more capacity. I want to convert that standalone into a replica set. So we start off with a small configuration, and now as business grows, the need grows, and you want to add more capacity, you could always grow from that into a replica set and add more capacity to it. I'm just going to click on that and say grow into a replica set. So now we can see there this thing started provisioning additional nodes and convert that standalone into a replica set now. Similarly, as you can add nodes, you could always shrink back. So I have a replica set here with 4 nodes. I have the action available to remove that node. So I could remove capacity, return it back into the cloud, and contain my charges which are happening. Some of the other actions which are available here is self-explanatory. Here you could see you could restart database, you could clone, you can terminate, and modify here. So modify action is specifically for modifying any configuration details. So we can see, for example, here I'm going to go and say modify this database. I can change my backup preferences or just leave it alone. And then remember we talked about parameter groups. So I provision this database without applying any parameters, but I want to now apply and change the configuration and fine-tune this database. So I could apply a different parameter group to this and say apply right now, or save. Now if I save it, then the database will get restarted during that next maintenance cycle, and the parameters will be applied. Or if I wanted to see the effect right now, I just go and say apply. It will just warn me that it will restart that database, and we will see that the parameter. Now you can see that reporting DB is being displayed here. So these are various management functions, configurations you can do. Quickly want to show you here in the parameter groups, like we saw, we were able to apply and create databases using the parameter groups. I will show you how do you edit those or create those parameter groups. So here you can see that I have 2 parameter groups created. I can go and create a new parameter group. So creating a parameter group is basically making a copy of default parameters which are exposed. Make a copy of that, and then you can edit that. So let's say that now I have made a copy of the default parameters. I can view into it. So these are various tuning parameters which are available in Mongo. So I have made them available. So let's say that a simple parameter, I want to change the slow query time. So slow MS from the default value is 100, and I want to change this to 150, for example. So that is when a query is marked as slow. And I want to change this and save this configuration. Now, once I have created a parameter group or edited and saved it, I can go back to a existing running instance and say I want to use that parameter group. Click on the modify and choose. Now I have a demo as the parameter group which is available. So this is very simply you can look at the performance of your database for some time, then you just determine that what you want to fine tune, and you could go and fine tune it. So I'm going to apply this demo and then apply that to the database right now. So here the parameter group is getting added onto that. So in the monitoring section, we saw CumuLogic provides you the monitoring details. So your user can always look at this and then determine what fine tuning they want to do and provision that. Now let's go and take a look and connect to one of these databases and add some data into it. For example, let's go and see, click on the access details, and I'm going to pick up this database and connect from here. I'm going to say Mongo connect into that database, and then I can say show DBs. Then I could use one particular database, and then I can add so if there's any objects in that database. So basically you get access to the database, and then you could use that for connecting to it from your application or from your management to take care of it. Under access group, you can fine tune the access control. So like I said, when you provision that, so this is the firewall policy you could define, you could edit. So these are all defined with the default access group here. As you can see, for the demo, we have kept it open, but you can fine tune that and say edit, add specific port number and open it to a specific CID or IP range, and then you could make use of that.